You're staring at your laptop screen, and honestly, the job market right now feels like a locked door with the keys on the other side. You've updated your resume for the 50th time, you've tailored cover letters until your eyes physically hurt, and you're hitting Easy Apply on LinkedIn like it's a slot machine that just has to pay out eventually. But then, nothing. Silence. Maybe an automated rejection email 3 weeks later that starts with, "Thank you for your interest," and ends with your soul slowly leaving your body. You start wondering if your resume is just vanishing into some digital black hole, or if everybody else in the world secretly knows a handshake or a password that you don't. It's exhausting, and frankly, it makes you feel like you're screaming into a void. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide right into solid careers while others are constantly slamming their heads against the same brick wall of online job portals for months on end. And the more I dug into this, the more I realized something that completely flipped my perspective on how we even look for work. Because while everyone is fighting to the death over remote desk jobs and corporate salaries, there's this entire shadow economy of work that is aggressively, almost desperately, begging for people to show up. I'm talking about industries where the interview is basically just checking if you have a pulse and can pass a drug test, where they will hire you on the spot, put you in a uniform, and start paying you within 48 hours. It completely changes how you view job security when you realize that the bottleneck to making money isn't always your lack of skills. Sometimes it's just that you're fishing in the wrong pond. So if you're stuck in that resume black hole, or if you just need cash flowing in right now while you figure out your next major move, stick around. We're going to walk through 5 specific jobs that are so starved for workers right now that the usual gatekeeping has basically been thrown out the window. And by the end of this, you might realize that getting hired isn't nearly as impossible as it feels at this exact moment. Let's start with something that flies completely under the radar until you actually need it, and that is the water restoration and damage remediation industry. Think about the people who show up when a pipe bursts in your house and floods your basement, or when a hurricane rips the roof off a neighborhood. It is chaotic, messy work, but here's the thing. These companies cannot find enough people willing to actually do the labor. They have all the high-tech moisture meters and the heavy-duty dehumidifiers, but they severely lack the humans willing to lug them into a soggy living room at 2 in the morning. I was talking to a guy who runs a local franchise a few months back, and he told me he literally keeps interview clothes in his truck because he'll frequently get a call from a homeowner, drive to the house, and if a friend of the homeowner is there helping mop up, he'll offer them a job on the spot. It sounds crazy, but it happens all the time. The concept here is really simple. Disaster doesn't wait for a 3-round interview process. When water is sitting on hardwood floors, every hour costs the insurance company thousands of dollars, so these restoration companies need bodies immediately. Why does this matter to you? Because they don't care if you have a degree in marketing. They care if you can carry a fan up a flight of stairs and show up on time. The actionable takeaway here is to look up local water damage or mold remediation companies in your area. Skip the online portals. Just call them directly or stop by their yard. Tell them you have a clean background, a strong back, and you're ready to work. You can usually start as a technician making $15 to $20 an hour, and honestly, if you stick with it and learn how to read moisture maps and estimate jobs, you can easily be making 80 to 100 grand a year within a few years. It's dirty, it's wet, and it's not glamorous, but it is an absolute straight line from "I need a job today" to "I have a paycheck coming next Friday." Moving on to something a little more visible, but equally desperate: commercial driving, specifically CDL holders, and even non-CDL hotshot drivers. We've all seen the driver's wanted signs on the back of 18-wheelers, right? They're so common that we've basically developed blind spots to them. But there is a massive, hidden crisis in the logistics and supply chain world right now. It's not just long-haul trucking, either. It's the local guys delivering building materials to construction sites. It's the people driving the smaller box trucks for last-mile delivery. A buddy of mine got laid off from a mid-level corporate job and was panicking. He didn't have a CDL, but he found a local company that needed a non-CDL driver to move pallets of tile around the city. He walked in on a Tuesday, they did a quick driving test in a parking lot, handed him a uniform, and said, "Be here at 5 a.m. tomorrow." Just like that. The breakdown of why this is happening is pretty straightforward when you think about it. Older drivers are retiring in droves, and younger generations have been pushed so hard toward 4-year colleges that the pipeline for skilled trades and commercial driving has completely dried up. If you're watching this and you need a reset, getting your CDL is one of the most asymmetric bets you can make. Many companies will actually pay for your CDL training if you sign a contract to drive for them for a year. But even if you don't want to drive a big rig, look into local delivery companies, beverage distributors, or landscaping supply yards. They are desperate for people who can legally drive a box truck and don't have a pile of DUIs on their record. The frustration for these business owners is real. They have trucks sitting idle in the lot, literally burning money in depreciation, because they simply cannot find a reliable human to put behind the wheel. Be that reliable human, and you will never have to worry about a 3-month interview process again. Alright, let's shift gears to something a bit different, and honestly, something that kind of irritates me when I think about it too much: the heavy equipment operator shortage. If you drive through almost any semi-developed suburb in America right now, you'll see excavators sitting idle. You'll see dirt that needs moving, foundations that need digging, and guys in hard hats standing around looking at their phones. You'd think with all the housing shortages we hear about on the news, construction would be booming and everyone would be making a fortune. And construction is booming, but they can't find anyone to actually run the machines. I read a stat the other day that the average age of a heavy equipment operator in the US is pushing 50. 50! That means a huge chunk of the people operating bulldozers, backhoes, and skid steers are going to retire in the next decade, and there is almost nobody coming up behind them. Why? Because somewhere along the way, we convinced an entire generation that the only valid path to a good life was sitting in a cubicle staring at a spreadsheet. And now, we have a massive shortage of people who know how to move dirt. Here's the wild part about this industry. The barrier to entry is shockingly low if you're willing to learn. You don't need a 4-year degree. You don't even necessarily need experience. A lot of the smaller excavation and grading contractors are so desperate that if you walk up to a job site, look the foreman in the eye, and say, "Hey, I want to learn how to run that excavator. I'll start by digging trenches with a shovel or doing labor. Just teach me," they will often hire you right there. It's an unspoken apprenticeship. You start out as the ground guy, you watch the operator, you ask 1,000 questions, and eventually, they let you get in the seat on a Friday afternoon when the boss isn't around. Before you know it, you're running a $150,000 machine making $40 or $50 an hour. It blows my mind that people are sitting at home broke, staring at a screen, when there's literally a 6-figure skill sitting unused on a construction site down the street. Now, let's talk about something that is a little closer to home for a lot of people, and that's the home health aide and personal care assistant industry. This one hits different because it's not about dirt or heavy machinery, it's about human beings. The elderly population in this country is growing at a rate that we are completely unprepared for. We have a massive wave of baby boomers who are aging out of their independent years, and the infrastructure to care for them is cracking at the seams. I have a family member who recently needed in-home care after a surgery, and trying to find an agency that could send someone out was like pulling teeth. The agencies aren't understaffed because they don't have the money to hire. They are understaffed because the work is emotionally and physically demanding, and historically, it hasn't paid incredibly well. But that is changing rapidly. Because the demand is so high, wages for home health aides have shot up in almost every state. Some agencies are offering sign-on bonuses, guaranteed hours, and immediate hiring. You can literally walk into a home care agency with zero medical experience, pass a basic background check, take a 2-week certification course that they often pay for, and be in someone's home making $20+ an hour within a month. Why does this matter to you? Because it's one of the most recession-proof jobs on the planet. People get sick regardless of what the stock market is doing. The aging population isn't a trend that's going to reverse. If you have an ounce of empathy and a bit of patience, this is an industry that will basically roll out the red carpet for you. It's not easy work. You're helping people bathe, you're cooking meals, you're dealing with families who are stressed out. But the emotional payoff is huge, and the job security is practically bulletproof. It's a quiet, steady way to make a living that society desperately needs right now, and they will hire you pretty much on the spot if you show up with a good attitude. Finally, let's talk about an industry that is quietly booming in the background, mostly out of sight: manufacturing and warehouse production, specifically for essential goods. I'm not just talking about Amazon fulfillment centers where you're treated like a robot. I'm talking about local manufacturing plants, the places that make the screws, the plastic parts, the food packaging, the electrical components that keep the world running. During the pandemic, we all realized how fragile our supply chains were. Since then, there has been a massive push to bring manufacturing back to the US, or at least to stabilize it. But here's the problem they're running into. Nobody wants to work in a factory anymore. The stigma of the factory worker has somehow become a negative thing, which is completely insane to me because these are often climate-controlled environments with union protections, guaranteed overtime, and benefits that would make a gig economy worker weep. I was reading about a plastic injection molding plant in the Midwest that had to turn away millions of dollars in new contracts because they literally could not hire enough machine operators to run the lines. They were running Craigslist ads, billboard ads, everything. If you walked in there with a high school diploma and told them you wanted to learn how to operate a machine, they would have put you through their paid training program that same week. The concept here is simple. Essential manufacturing doesn't stop. When the economy dips, people stop buying luxury goods, but they still need the packaging for their food, they still need the parts for their cars, they still need the basic components of modern life. The actionable takeaway: drive past the industrial park in your city. Look for the buildings with the smokestacks or the loading docks. Go to their front door and ask if they need machine operators or material handlers. You might be surprised to find that they offer starting pay that rivals entry-level corporate jobs, but without the soul-crushing email chains and pointless meetings. It's straightforward work. You make a thing, you get paid for the thing. And right now, they are absolutely desperate for people who are willing to show up and do it.